Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In this video we're going over the latest and greatest in gaming and tech news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about Windows Emulation on Android with WinLater. And WinLater just got a brand new update to version 1.1. There's a few improvements in this version. They've improved the cursor, improved input controls, and if you've got a Snapdragon CPU, they've added experimental Adreno turnip drivers. Unfortunately, at this point in time, WinLater is still closed source, but partially closed source. And that's a very fortunate thing. So what's happened here is WinLater has started to open source part of this emulator, which is a very, very good first step. Now, some people have said WinLater contains viruses, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, I did run it through VirusTotal, and there are some flags here. Oh, and someone on a boat over there. And anyways, I think those might be false flags. I could be wrong, but a few other people took a look at this, a few other developers, and they didn't notice anything out of the blue that should be considered a big red flag. I could be wrong though, and please take that with a grain of salt. The bulk of this is still closed source, and there could be an issue, there could not be. So as much as I want to give my full blessing to WinLater, unfortunately I can't at this point. But if you wanted to use it, feel free to. And speaking about Windows emulation on Android, next up we're talking about Cassia, and we haven't talked about this one in a while. But Cassia is making some good progress. There was some footage shown of Skyrim up and running at about 15 frames a second. Not perfect, there was some crashing though. And also Cuphead up and running pretty darn well. No versions of Cassia have released just yet. And from my understanding here, Cassia will be partially closed source. Now I can understand this from a developer point of view, at the same time it is very unfortunate. But I did ask the developers if they plan on stopping this, will they open source it at all? And the answer here is yes. Fortunately, the former Skyline developers Mark and Bylaws have a very good track record of being trustworthy, so that's a very big plus. And I'm also glad they're not going to leave the community high and dry if for some unforeseen reason they stop working on this emulator. But they don't see that being the case. They're very confident in this one. And again, if I didn't say this one already, no release date just yet. They are still working on it. And speaking about no release date, next up we're talking about a highly experimental PS2 emulator, Dolby Station. Now this one is more of a research emulator. If you're looking to play games, I'd recommend PCSX2 or Aether SX2. But at the same time here, they have made some very interesting progress. It looks like they've got a partially working BIOS for it, which is amazing for a PS2 emulation. Again, don't get too excited about this one. Dolby Station is a research emulator at this point in time. It's not necessarily meant for everyday use. Maybe in the future, maybe not. But at this point in time, I'm just going to keep my eyes on it. And speaking about keeping your eyes on something, next up we're talking about N64 Emulation with RMG, which stands for Rosalie's Mupen GUI. Anyways, this one got another update. Rosalie is extremely quick at fixing this emulator. If there's a bug, she's on top of it, she fixes it. You may want to pay attention to this one because a new version just released after I reported on the older version. And speaking about releases, next up here we're talking about a pretty darn big one. Big P Emu, Atari Jaguar and Jaguar CD emulation just got a brand new update to version 1.07. Rich Whitehouse is on fire here. This is a big update. So a head tracker input device has been added and stereoscopic rendering has been fully implemented. This is big, especially if you're a fan of Jaguar VR games. Rich Whitehouse also has a YouTube channel and a video up explaining these very features, and I'll drop a link to that one in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. Rich Whitehouse has done a ton of work here, and they continue to be amazing. Next up, if you're a fan of Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow on the Nintendo DS, there's a brand new ROM hack called Ultimate Zangetsu Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow, and you can play as Zangetsu in Dawn of Sorrow. I'll drop a link to that ROM hack as well in the description below, and feel free to check it out. Next up, we're talking about PlayStation 4 emulation with FPPS4. And FPPS4 has just released a nice compatibility tracker. I'll drop a link to their website in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. RPCSX is not the only PS4 emulator out there. There's quite a bit of competition, and FP PS4 is doing pretty good. And last up here, we're talking about Baldur's Gate 3, which has been a critical success so far. The game's been highly reviewed, a lot of people are enjoying it, and a lot of people have bought the game. And a lot of people have not bought the game and are enjoying it as well. It's highly pirated. Now this is just a PSA. I don't support piracy, I don't condone illegally downloading anything. And if you have pirated the game by chance, you may want to check your PC because a lot of these versions online that have been pirated contain malware, like miners and such. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. Unfortunately, no bears on this hike, not a whole lot of wildlife, a couple of boats, and that's about it, and a lot of birds chirping around. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.